Hello, I'm Philip Sneller. Welcome to Window on the Word. Today, let's enjoy together Mark chapter 5. And he went to the other side of the sea, to the district of the Gerasenes. And when he got out of the boat, immediately a man from the tombs with an unclean spirit met him, who lived in the tombs, and not even with a chain could anyone bind him any longer, because he had often been bound with shackles and chains. But the chains had been torn apart by him, and the shackles on his feet were smashed, and no one was strong enough to subdue him. And through every night and day in the tombs and on the mountains, he was crying out and cutting himself with stones. And when he saw Jesus from a distance, he ran and prostrated himself before him. And having cried out in a loud voice, he said, "What do you have to do with me, Jesus, Son of God Most High? I implore you by God, do not torture me." For he was saying to him, "Come out of the man, you unclean spirit." And he asked him, "What is your name?" And he said to him, "My name is Legion, because we are many." And he began to implore him many times that he might not send them out of the region. And a large herd of pigs was feeding there near the mountain. And they implored him, saying, "Send us into the pigs so that we may enter them." And he gave them permission. And when the unclean spirits came out, they went into the pigs, and the herd rushed headlong down the steep slope into the sea, about 2,000, and they were drowned. And the herdsmen fled and reported in the city and in the countryside, and they came to see what it was that happened, and they came to Jesus, and they saw the man possessed by a demon sitting, clothed, and being in his right mind. And those who saw it described what took place to the demon-possessed man and the pigs. Then they began to urge him to go away from their region. And as he was getting into the boat, the man who was possessed by the demon implored him that he might stay with him. And he would not permit him, but he said, "Go home to your friends and tell them all that the Lord has done for you, and how he has shown mercy to you." And he departed and began to proclaim in the Decapolis all that Jesus did for him, and they were all astonished. And when Jesus crossed over in the boat again to the other side, a large crowd gathered to him, and he was by the sea. And one of the rulers of the synagogue came to him. His name was Jairus. And when he saw him, he fell at his feet, and he implored him greatly, saying, "My daughter is extremely ill. Come, lay your hands on her, so that she may get well and live." And he went with him. And a large crowd was following him, and was pressing on him. And there was a woman who had a flow of blood for 12 years, and had suffered much at the hands of many physicians, and had spent all she had, and had not been helped at all, but rather had become worse. When she heard about Jesus, having come behind him in the crowd, she touched his garment. For she said, "If only I might touch his garments, I will be healed." And immediately the flow of her blood was dried up, and she perceived in her body that she was healed from her torment. And immediately Jesus, having perceived in himself that power had gone out from him, when he turned around to the crowd, he said, "Who touched my garments?" And his disciples began saying to him, "You see the crowd following you, and you say, 'Who touched me?'" And he kept looking around to see who did it. So the woman was afraid, and trembling with fear, knowing what had happened to her, came and prostrated herself before him, and told him the whole truth. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has saved you. Go in peace and be healthy from your torment." While he was speaking, they came from the ruler of the synagogue, saying, "Your daughter died. Why bother the teacher any longer?" But when Jesus overheard the report they were speaking, he said to the ruler of the synagogue, "Do not be afraid, only believe." And he did not allow anyone to follow along with him except Peter and James and John, the brother of James. And they came to the house of the synagogue ruler, and he saw a turmoil and people wailing and weeping loudly. And he entered and said to them, "Why are you disturbed and weeping? The child is not dead, but sleeping." And they began to laugh at him. But having sent them all out, he took along the child's father and mother and those with him, and went in to where the child was. And when he took hold of the child's hand, he said to her, "Talitha cum," which is translated, "Little girl, I say to you, get up." And immediately the little girl got up and walked around, for she was 12 years old. And immediately they were greatly astonished. And he strictly ordered that no one should know this. And he said to give her something to eat. Thank you for listening. To God be the glory.